Yes, good morning and welcome to the Friday edition of News Review right here on Power Breakfast. You're watching Citizen TV. My name is Fred Indimuli. Good morning. Now, I want to look at the headlines this morning. I'm very privileged to have a very bright panel. And you will see why. On my left, for the very first time on this panel, Amina Mohammed, President, Law Students Society of Kenya, LSSK. It's a pleasure to have you here. Karibu sana. Let me start with the other lady, Mary Mwangi, a familiar face on this panel. It's good to have you. Eric Wanjohi on my extreme left, also a familiar face. And Bwana Kakai Kisinja on my extreme right. He's been here before. This is your second time on this panel. Karibu sana. Quick look at the headlines. Main headline on the front page of the Standard: details of Uhuru's case against Raila. President's legal team last night presented their evidence against NASA petition with declaration that the election was smooth and they would take head-on claims of vote top-up, suppression of Raila's bid, 40 polling stations and discrepancies in key forms. That's the main headline. On the top strip of the Standard, President ODM reject bid by MPs to raise salaries, and this is the biggest talking point. Of course, the presidential election petition still dominating the front pages, but the biggest talking point as of yesterday had to do with the salaries for MPs. The main headline on the Daily Nation is just as that on the Standard: Uhuru defends election win in petition papers. On the top strip of the Daily Nation, teenage girl arrested in Sando death probe. That's a story also on the back page of the Daily Nation, where a 17-year-old girl has been arrested in Wendo Township, Migori County, and she was found with a phone that is said to have been used to send threatening messages to the late Christmas Sando. Of course, that's the deceased IEBC ICT manager, Christmas Sando, who was buried last week. Also featuring on the front page of the Daily Nation, new cancer machines to ease waiting times. Let me start off so that we dispense with this issue of the presidential petition, because for obvious reasons we cannot go really deep into the petition. It's already before the courts. But we just need to understand the processes, because yes, we saw NASA filing the petition last week sometime on a Friday at midnight. Yesterday, the president's team was filing very late into the night. I think midnight. Yes, almost at midnight. We do understand that there's another deadline today where written submissions are being submitted as well. For the sake of our audience, and even I have to admit, I do not know the difference between what was filed last week and what is being filed today. We're privileged to have Bwana Kakai Kisinja, who has been is a former acting chief registrar of the judiciary, so he understands these processes. So Bwana Kisinja, in as far as the processes are concerned, what was filed last Friday, what was filed yesterday, and what are these written submissions that we now expect to be filed, and what are the other processes going forward now?
Thank you very much. I think once you file a case in court, you become a petitioner, and then you are expected to file a petition. Now, we have very strict timelines in terms of how to file these petitions, and in the Kenyan constitution we only have 14 days in which to have this matter determined. These are constitutional requirements. So what NASA did by last Friday was to file the petition, and we all remember that they filed it very late. Now, once you file a petition, as I said, you become a petitioner, and then you serve it to the respondent. Now, in this case, the respondent is His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, and of course is enjoined in that petition with the IEBC. Now, once you file the petition to the respondent are given 4 days, and within those 4 days, they must file what they call the respondent's replying affidavit and petition.
So that is, so they responding to the initial
they are responding to the initial petition filed by NASA. Now, that is what was happening yesterday late at night, because there are very strict deadlines. Now, the Chief Justice was very categorical and issued guidelines, because the Constitution allows him to issue guidelines. He has to link the guidelines to the Supreme Court Act and the Constitution. So he issued guidelines, in which strict guidelines how to follow these things, because you remember we said we only have 14 days and this thing has to be done within 14 days. So by midnight yesterday, that's what you saw happening, meaning therefore that NASA will be served with what Jubilee has filed, and NASA now has a responsibility and an obligation to file what we call a rejoinder. those issues that have been raised by Jubilee, which are not in the main
so basically petition. NASA will be responding to Jubilee's, to President Kenyatta's response.
Exactly, which is called a rejoinder. When you look at the CJ's guidelines, they are supposed to do that by 1 p.m. today.
Yes.
So they don't have much time. However, by 1 p.m. today again, there's what we call amicus or a friend of the court, amicus curiae or a friend of the court.
Yes.
Now these are parties who want to be enjoined in the suit, and they are not initially in the suit of NASA, but they want to be enjoined in the suit, and they feel that it's important that they be enjoined the suit. And the guidelines are there. They are supposed to file the application and the submissions, giving reasons why they will have to be enjoined in the suit. That will be done today. So by close of the day, all the applications are supposed to have been filed, including applications for those who want to be enjoined in the suit. The Supreme Court rules provides for an opportunity to be enjoined, apart from amicus curiae, any other person to be enjoined in the suit, and this must be through an application.
Okay.
Then that is it, because today is the deadline, and for tomorrow, according to the law, we need to set the petition for hearing, because now they have starting from tomorrow they'll be hearing the petition. What is interesting is that the CJ had mentioned earlier that he is not very keen on sitting on a Saturday, but I assume that one, he might give directions on that issue. If not, they might sit later on in the afternoon. Remember, the 14 days runs even on a Sunday, so we expect works to begin either late tomorrow or earliest Sunday.
And Amina Mohammed, of course, you're also a lawyer. We understand that there is also expected, I think, is it IEBC, the respondents in the initial petition are supposed to also file their written submissions by Saturday. What will that be?
Well, as he said, they have a deadline to file by tomorrow, because it's today.
So NASA
today at 1,
is filing.
Today everything ends. Service, everyone, the response, finished. You serve it today. Tomorrow so now the court
what is the need for the respondents to file written submissions today?
The issue of written submissions, you know, we are going to what they call a pre-trial conference. The issue of written submissions will help the court in terms of analyzing. There are issues we call issues in law. What questions do the respondents, what questions to NASA want? So the written submissions helps to narrow down on the issues to be determined. Because remember, the court has very few days left. Actually, if you count the 14 days, we are now day 6. So you have less than 6 days to determine this issue, this matter. So the issues of written submissions helps the court, when they are conducting the pre-trial, to narrow down on the issues to be decided before that court.
And finally, because everyone is waiting for when this Supreme Court will actually sit, because that's when we'll get to understand what's really going on, when is the first sitting expected to happen, where we'll see the bench and all these lawyers before making their...
According to the law and the timelines that have been set, they're supposed to start sitting tomorrow. Now the challenge which is there is that the CJ had said clearly he wouldn't be comfortable sitting on a Saturday. So I expect either they sit later on in the afternoon tomorrow for giving directions, or a proper hearing will begin on Sunday.
So starting Sunday we expect to see the full hearing.
Yes.
Which I'm sure will be televised live by most media houses. So that we avoid the risk of sub judice, we'll leave that issue there. The merits of that petition will be determined by the courts. And we move on to other issues. A very positive story highlighted on the front page of the Daily Nation: new cancer machines. We have this tendency of focusing more on the politics in Kenya. We miss a big story. I've seen it's also on Citizen TV, but it also comes in as those stories were on part 2 after the first break. You always start with the politics, and it's a unique Kenyan thing that we focus more on the politics, yet politics is supposed to actually the dividend that we are supposed to get from politics is this: we don't focus on the dividends, we just focus on the politics.
We're highly politicized, as a lot of Kenyans are aware. I mean, even little children will tell you who is pro or against, and they'll even tell you down to the ethnic makeup. And I think that's very wrong. As we have discussed here before, issue-based politics is important. And now with these cancer machines, we are very, very happy. It's a breath of fresh air. We know of a lot of people who have been lining up to get treatment, others who are misdiagnosed, others who die, and they should have had treatment. So I'm very happy to see this.
Yes, new cancer machines to ease waiting times. That's how the headline reads on the Daily Nation. The waiting time for cancer patients is set to shrink from 3 to 1 month thanks to new machines installed at Kenyatta National Hospital and launched by President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday. Now, the machines' donations from India will increase patient treatment to 190 per day. 190 cancer patients can now be attended to per day, up from 23, as has been the case with the old technology, which was called the Cobalt 60. And according to this story, we have at least 37,000 cancer patients, cancer cases reported every year. Now, this is the reason why we go to elections.
Yes.
Yet, this is not what we give prominence when it comes to the news. This is not the biggest headline. It should have been, now we can actually handle more cancer cases as a bigger story, but no, it has to go back to politics.
It's all about the bottom line. If you put the cancer story as the headline, that newspaper will not sell compared to the next newspaper that puts politics as the headline. During the last day of the elections, we saw a newspaper putting 3 headlines for different places just so they can sell. They try to appeal to the masses. What the masses want is what the headlines will read.
Don't you think, Eric, that that's probably misinformation on the part of the media, that we think as the media, we know very much, we've done research on our audience and we really think this is what they want. They just want politics, 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 and nothing that really matters to them?
Fred, it's a bit interesting that you're asking us to respond to your area of expertise.
I want to get...
We'd want to hear it from you, actually. We'd want to hear the response from you. Why is it that you blow up political affairs more than development affairs? But having said that, we've reached a point whereby we've had enough of this politicking. We've had enough of elections, we've had enough of who is getting into power or who is getting what, and we now want to start seeing development projects coming in. We've had enough of these ethnic divisions and all this polarization of the country. We now want to see how Kenyans are working together towards a common benefit, a common good. And such a story should actually take prominence in the media. However, having said that, I'd want to emphasize that it would be better to see other hospitals actually also being empowered likewise, so that even such cancer treatment can be taken down to county level, so that many more people can be able to afford. You know, there are so many Kenyans who are spending a lot of money going to India and other countries for cancer treatment, and we want to see how we can be able to reduce that cost of burden to them. So it would be good to see whether other hospitals and other county governments can adopt that policy of trying to get as much investors coming in to empower their hospitals with such machines.
Yes, of course, cancer as it stands right now is the biggest killer in Kenya, way ahead of HIV and even child mortality. I do understand cancer is a big problem. 37,000 cases reported every year, at least when we see such headlines. That's something to celebrate. Yes. Another positive story there, ban on plastic bags, 2 days to when the ban takes effect. It takes effect on Monday, 28th of August, and that's another thing that Kenyans are waiting, not really waiting for. Probably there's a lot of misinformation about the ban on plastics, but one of the headlines I've seen on where was that? Ban on plastics, Daily Nation, page 2. Drop off points for polythene bags as Monday ban looms. Now there's no turning back on plastics, NEMA says. Kenyans with stocks of polythene bags may declare them to the county governments. Take them to the supermarkets, wait for official communication on alternative drop-off points, but they must dispose of them anyway before the Monday ban. Now, this is the one thing that I've realized a lot of Kenyans do not, probably they've not received this information, and many will fall prey to county law enforcement, because yes, on matters environment, the county law enforcement will be working on this, and I'm sure very many Nairobians will be arrested by county askaris, because these paper bags are still there, and we forget that it's that thing that you're used to working with every single day. Bwana Kakai, I know the argument is that men do not use paper bags quite as much, but that's the risk. You may think you do not use it, yet that's the problem that we're going to encounter.
I think for me, the push by NEMA and this is being environmental friendly. The push by NEMA is something good, and it's been all over in the media, and it has been sensitized very well in terms of communication. I think the few markets I've been to, Nakumatt is no longer stocking the plastics, Carrefour is no longer stocking these plastics. They have gone into something to use that is apart from that. My only problem is with the law. I think it's very prohibitive in terms of the punishment that they will make on people if they find you with the plastic bag. Is very heavy. I think it's 4 million, or you risk a jail term.
Risk a jail term, or both.
Or both. So that's very, very harsh. My other challenge will be the law enforcement officers will take advantage, maximum advantage of the situation to do this, and that's my biggest challenge. What, however, I don't know is whether this information has been sensitized through the radios, because the people in Nairobi or in big cities who are able to buy a newspaper know what's happening, but I'm not so sure about the ordinary Mwananchi, the Wanjikus out there, whether radio stations have been carrying this properly. I don't know, for example, in Inoro, whether Inoro has reached out to the masses. But then these are the challenges that we have in terms of communication.
Yes, but on such a big issue, when such a ban, which is cross-cutting, it's supposed to take effect across the country, it's not as easy to communicate to everyone in Kenya.
Well, I know the media has played a very important role in this. In fact, a lot of newspapers and media houses on television and radio have sent out that message. My concern, as Kissinger pointed out, is the punitive charges. Those are very high. And you must understand that a lot of people have stock. They're factories that are producing these plastic papers. They're individuals who are going to lose their jobs. And so what has NEMA done in terms of phasing out? I would rather have seen a phasing out rather than a strict deadline, and then suddenly we're supposed to carry different types of bags. In fact, you mentioned men don't carry plastic bags. I'd like to differ with you on that. We have a lot of gentlemen who work as askaris, who work part-time jobs, and they have to wear a uniform, so they carry this in plastic bags. Because culturally, an African man seen with a basket would be seen to be less masculine. So some of these issues needed to be accepted by society, and for them to understand why are we banning these plastic bags, what is the chemical content in these plastic bags, how is it affecting our water, how is it affecting our animals that drink the water that has these chemicals. So I believe on the part of NEMA they still need to educate people. I understand the spirit behind the law. It is important that we clean up our environment. However, I don't know if everybody understands why.
Yes. And back to the issue of ignorance, it is no defense in law. If you're caught and you say, okay, I did not know, you still will have to face the consequences. Yes,
but before I answer that, I think it's being told, it's not being told that the law is not being explained the right way. It's not a cover or a blanket ban on plastic bags. It has exceptions, and those exceptions were just brought lately. There were appeals by Kenyans and manufacturing companies that appealed to NEMA to bring these exceptions. So it was last minute.
But those are the things that
Kenyans don't know.
That Kenyans don't have.
Kenyans don't know. And up until last night, and the newspaper that you've read, it says that it has given directions on how to dispose already polythene bags that are in our households. Kenyans don't know that. This information actually just popped up on your newspaper, and I was reading yesterday. There's nothing like that. So NEMA, considering the hefty punishment that is available for breach of this law, NEMA has not done that part of sensitizing everyone to know. I don't know where I will take my paper bags until you read that headline.
Can that be challenged in a court of law, that NEMA has not done enough sensitization, therefore they shouldn't go ahead and punish people?
Yes, they can be taken to a judicial review. An action of an institution that infringes on people's rights, rather, or puts people at a disadvantage can be challenged in a court of law through a judicial review. Because it can be done. It can be stopped legally.
Harassing people. Because you're just carrying a plastic bag, and it's not. You have no clue that it's actually against the law.
Yeah, Fred, this whole issue of having punitive punishment for misdemeanors is actually absurd in a society such as Kenya, because you have so many people who are going to be jailed. I mean, even that simple fine that they are trying to impose on being caught carrying a paper bag, how many people can afford that fine? So you'll have our jails full of people who have committed misdemeanors, rather than having a kind of behavior change kind of approach. The problem I have with what NEMA has done is that they have introduced a good measure, yes, of banning plastic paper bags, but they have not carried out behavior change programs. Use of plastic bags in Kenya is not just something that started up the other day. It's a behavior that people have adopted. Now when you come and tell them that stop doing it, what alternatives are you giving them? Mary has just highlighted a few people, for instance, the watchmen who carry their uniforms in paper bags. I'll go ahead and mention people like mechanics, for instance. What options do they have? Instead of carrying a paper bag, the spare parts in a paper bag, what else can they carry in? So there are so many people who are being affected by this kind of a law, and yet there are no substantial behavior change programs that have been put in place to give people A, an alternative, B, to give people a window of opportunity for change. Because even as you introduce such laws, you need to first of all roll it out in a manner of sensitization that from today we will not allow, and when you're caught, you're not punished immediately, you're reminded. It's a constant reminder that this is illegal, and we're now transitioning to other methods of carrying out.
Can this ban be termed as faulty in the punishments that it highlights? Because surely, if at all you're trying to effect behavioral change, don't you think it would have been more effective if at all the fines were lesser? Maybe 2,000 shillings. If you fine 2,000 shillings once, you will always remember. Yes, you'll pay the fine, of course, and it's something you can afford, but you'll never forget that last time I was punished and I had to pay some money because of this, and therefore that gradually will affect the behavioral change.
Yes, and as we said, it's prohibitive, and these are the challenges of the 11th Parliament, because this law was passed in the 11th Parliament. Now we are having the 12th Parliament. But as my colleague said, it's something that I expect for to go to court at one point or another, because it's very prohibitive. As a lawyer, I think it's very prohibitive. What NEMA has done basically is discharge its responsibility. They have gazetted this thing, they have educated the public, they have warned the public, it has been all over in the media. To them, they are sitting pretty and I've done my part, so let the other person do their part. But I expect people to go to court and challenge the fines. Or best could be if there's a very progressive member of parliament who is coming in the 11th Parliament, in the 12th Parliament, can push for an amendment to that, to those fines.
To the penalties.
To the penalty.
Of course, the first sitting of the 12th House of Parliament will take place next Thursday. This is after the courts yesterday threw out or dismissed a petition by civil society that was seeking to block that swearing-in ceremony. Now the National Assembly and the Senate will go ahead, and the newly elected and re-elected members will be sworn into office on Thursday next week. And as Bonakakai Kissinger says, the ban on plastic bags and especially the penalties that come with it could be one of those discussions therein. Time for a break. I think it would be good to go for a break right now, so that when we come back we discuss MP salaries. It has been the biggest talking point yesterday. I saw one member actually beat a hasty retreat and even call a press briefing just to apologize to her constituents because of comments she had made with regard to that. We'll be discussing that and a lot more headlines when Power Breakfast returns.